In the Bible as well, there's the scripture about that gentleman that was actually forced to marry a prostitute.
Now there exists a tribe where all of the young boys have a specific job to do to become men. I need you to know that there are women everywhere who are trying to make the religion of Christianity perverse and what I call a whore haven. And it should be. It should be a place for prostitutes to become reformed. But it should not be a place for prostitutes to become reformed only because they believe that it will shield them from criticism and that suddenly their past will no longer matter. That is an absurdity, and that is a trend which is happening. And I believe that the exact type of gospel that you're expounding on here is pushing people more towards that than would be pushing people more towards reason and an actual relationship with the Lord.
Go ahead.
Oh, mate, I kind of agree with that. My whole...
Wait, but your question, you were going to make a question?
My whole question was just going to be this. If we're talking about a hypothetical situation of forgiveness, wouldn't you want to be forgiven for the things that you've done in your past? Therefore, if you have a look at the greatest commandment, one of them is to love others as you love yourself. So
I'm the chief of sinners, worst of the worst. The scummiest of the scum. The chief of all sinners is sitting right here. Thank the Lord that forgiveness is available for somebody like me. I'm still not marrying one of you fucking whores, right? That's I'm not saying you specifically.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is from the perspective of a Christian man who says that, what the hell would be the problem with that?
My question then, in the Bible as well, there's the scripture about that gentleman that was actually forced to marry a prostitute. I'm sure you know it a lot better than I do. But then what would you kind of comment? Is that it? And he literally was called to marry a prostitute and she's still sleeping around with people and he was called to still love her.
He literally went to go get her.
So I'm just curious as to what your perspective would be on something like that. If you're saying that there's no obligation.
Specific cases, like there could be a specific case where via divine command you were called to marry a prostitute. I'm most certain that such a thing could occur. But so what? So what? That has no bearing at all on whether or not it would be unchristian for a man who is devout, who comes across you and knows that you're devout, but still knows the consequence of your past. Like, for instance, what if you had 4 kids from your past? Sure, your sins are washed clean. But does that mean that he has to deal with your 4 kids from other dads because your sins are washed clean? Hang on. Doesn't that seem absurd to you?
I don't think anyone's prefaced this with obligation, but I definitely agree with what you're saying. I'm just asking hypotheticals in return for your opinion on them, but I definitely don't think there's any obligation in any capacity.
It's possible you can have a divine command within the realm of logical possibility for all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But whether or not this is so doesn't mean that it would be unchristian for a man who is a devout Christian to push him towards marrying outside of his preference. And in this case, for a low body count or for a woman who has been chaste, what in the world would be wrong with that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think that no one should be pressured or forced into marrying someone. No, like, I get that. But let's just take that same Christian man. Sure, he doesn't want her as a wife, but what if he were to say, yeah, she was a slut 10 years ago, then I still see her as a slut. I think that's what I'm trying to say. No, you can't, just because of what you did 10 years ago, that doesn't mean you're still that today, because you are a new creation.
No, I agree with that.
But you're have preferences.
You're not what you You're not what you were. You're not what you were. But the consequence of what you were does follow you. If you were a serial killer and then you become a devout Christian, can I concede that there's a possibility you could have salvation? Of course. But that doesn't mean I'm letting you out of prison. And if you're a chick who has 10 baby daddies, right? That doesn't mean that a man is obligated or in any way to look past that because he's a Christian. You certainly agree that that has to be true, right?
Yeah, sure, 100%.
Well, then with Brian, back to Brian, we're going to circle this all the way back, right? How in the world then could you ever tell him that his preference for, but I fucked the guy right before you, I just won't do it with you, wouldn't have the meaning to him that essentially you thought he was lesser than the guy before him?
He wouldn't. I mean, he...
Right. He wouldn't. Gotcha, bitch. Anyway, with that, I'll take a breather.
All right. Okay. Look, I'll give you guys a couple analogies here. I'm going to give you a couple analogies.
Oh, my gosh.
So, So this would be this whole like the girl, and we've had girls come on the show and say this. Recently we had a girl say she was going to Europe a bunch, having fun in Europe, traveling in Europe. And when she was in Europe, she had no qualms at all about sleeping with a guy within 30 minutes of meeting him. But then she's like, well, now that I'm back home, I'm going to wait like a month, 2 months, 3 months before I have sex with a guy. Totally arbitrary, no actual reason, just arbitrary because she thinks that will make her more likely to get a guy to commit to her, which actually isn't the case at all. But a couple analogies here. The girl saying, well, all the previous guys hooked up with him fast, but you, I want to wait. It's like a guy saying, you don't understand. Those women, they're just for hookups. So of course I bought them expensive things and I took them to the best dining places and I even paid their bills. But you're different from them. I actually see you as a potential girlfriend, wife. So you have to wait for those benefits. So let's go out to McDonald's. You're paying, by the way. Okay, here's another one. Here's the other one. Okay. It's like going to a fancy restaurant. You're waiting in line. Everyone is paying $1 for a fancy T-bone steak. And then when it's finally your turn, you're informed all they have left is a McDonald's burger that'll cost you $1,000. How do you feel?
Can I ask you a question?
Well, I'd like an answer to my question first. From
Well,
the
it's kind of like a rebuttal from that, what
Okay,
you
go
said.
ahead.
So you're saying that hypothetically your interpretation of if a woman is interested in you is if they have sex with you, because if they had sex with other people and they're not having sex with you, that means that your value is potentially diminished. But why are you placing emphasis on your value being through sexual intimacy? Why couldn't it be that your value is actually placed in the fact that this woman is going, hey, I've done this so many times with so many other people. I see something in you. I want to cherish that. I want to nurture that. And I don't want to do that because I think that there's something about you that is different from everyone else. I want to get to know you outside of sex. I want to get to know you for you, because sex places a false sense of intimacy with someone where if you take sex away, you actually get to know the person for their truest essence. So why wouldn't you be more special because she's not just sleeping with you, but she's actually going, hey, wait a minute, I see something in you that's different. I want to cherish that, champion that, and nurture that. So I'm not going to sleep
I have
with
a
you.
response. So I have a response. So first off, that was actually Andrew's argument, not mine, because I deferred to him on his response.
Okay.
So
Well, that's for you then.
Andrew's
Sorry.
But
So let's condense it then. You can ask it this way, and I'll answer it.
Oh, okay. Well, then, to repeat the question, I'm not going to repeat it, but you heard the question. I guess that's it. Why is the interpretation that value is placed on the sexual intimacy, and why isn't it built on a different type of foundation? And why does that diminish the man as being special because a woman doesn't want to do that with him?
Well, wouldn't this defer to just cultural relativism? So let me tell you a story about the cum warriors of Papua New Guinea.
The fuck?
Oh, man.
Okay,
This is the peacecraft argument. I'm going to explain this to you, and God help all of us as I do it. This is the peacecraft argument for the cum warriors of Papua New Guinea. Now, there exists a tribe in Papua New Guinea where all of the young boys have a specific job to do to become men. And I'm not going to get into it. You can infer it.
Yep.
Okay? Because it's YouTube. But their job involves their mouth and men. Okay? That's what they do all day long, and they load up with that. Interestingly enough, surprisingly enough.
Disgusting.
No, I'm not kidding. Not kidding.
I'm literally so lost.
It's a real thing. It's a real phenomenon. The interesting phenomenon here is that there doesn't seem to be any trauma from these young men.
Ulysses the pagan donated $200. Girl to them right of red dress. What if a guy with a past of SA women is now born Ogion? Would it be unchristian of you to not want to be with them?
I was
The
actually
past
thinking about
has
that.
consequences.
I was actually thinking about that. Like, I wouldn't date someone that was a petty, you know?
Yep. We
Right?
know what you're talking about.
Although that doesn't mean that I don't believe that God has the ability to change him and that he can have a completely different life. But yeah, that wouldn't be my preference to go date.
All right. Thank you, the pagan. Appreciate it.
That doesn't change. Yeah.
Thank you, pagan. Appreciate it.
Pagan.
Back to that thing or whatever. And
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not kidding. This is a real phenomenon. It's a real tribe. This really happened. So what it reduces to is what's called cultural relativism. So if there's no trauma for these young men who have to do this ghastly deed, and they have to do it on a daily basis, by the way, can you explain to me how you would go in there if they say, I love doing this, it's my favoriteest thing, and explain to them why it would be wrong for them to do that?
I get your point. Well, I guess my rebuttal to that would be we're not talking about people in Papua New Guinea. The context of what we're talking about is people in the West, and we're talking about this new age of sex culture. So it's kind of irrelevant to try and debate.
Yeah, great. So how would you convince them that what was going on was wrong?
Well, to be honest with you, unless there was a necessity for... Yeah, I think it's kind of a null and void argument, to be honest with
Well, I
you,
mean, if
because
you
I
were-
don't
Null and void.
understand...
If you were trying to spread Christianity to them.
Well,
I never
how
said that
could
I
it
was trying
be
to spread
null and
Christianity.
void?
But I think that's
When
what
out
he's
of one
talking
side of your mouth you
about.
say that
Yeah.
to Brian, cultural relativism doesn't matter, yet he lives in a culture where promiscuity is absolutely heralded as being absolutely fine. Everything from feminism to what is now the modern day pickup community says that this type of promiscuity is absolutely fine. And yet, when I give you an example of the most ghastly of deeds being culturally relativized down to your own prism, you couldn't give me a single argument for how you would tell the tribe that they probably shouldn't let this occur?
The only way that I could potentially see of going about that is, again, you'd just have to... you create a new culture. You'd have to educate people on what your perception of sex is, what healthy sexuality is. It would start on an individual basis of saying, how do you feel about this? Is this something that you enjoy?
Yeah, they
do you
love
know
it.
there's an
They
alternative?
think it's great.
Well, then
They
educating
think
that there's
it's
an
great.
alternative
It's a right
solution.
manhood, not
Yeah.
kidding.
So it's as simple as that. I think if you can tell people that there's another way to do things, if they accept that, like this, we're saying you don't have to do things this way. There is an opposite way. If you take that choice, amazing. But education.
But your initial argument was, why isn't your worldview grounded on something besides this thing? So what I did was I gave you a worldview, which was not grounded on this thing, which instead was grounded on that particular culture. And so now you know that different worldviews can be grounded just based around the culture that they're in. You must agree that this is so, right?
Absolutely. But again, I think from my perspective to change, I never knew that there was another way. And so I always thought that it was that way, and to have sexual intimacy. When I was educated that there was another option, I took that. So I think it comes down to, again, if you have the capacity to educate people in a way that says...
Fantastic. Okay, well, why don't you go ahead, and I just can't wait to hear you educate Brian. So if Brian has a chick who is on birth control, right, and they are in a committed relationship, okay, they're in a committed relationship, meaning they're not sleeping with anybody except each other, and they plow each other every single day in the craziest positions you can think of. I mean, he gets the anal beats out. He's having a good time with this, let's say, in this hypothetical.
That's why
he's having a ball.
Wow,
Explain to Brian why what he's doing is wrong. Word.
Could I add? I don't think it's.
Hang on,
For me as a
can you let
person?
her answer?
I think, again, the reason why I would talk about this is it would be it's a great question. The reason as to why I would wonder, it's a complex one. I know it's a complex one. I would say, do you believe it? So if I was doing this legitimately with someone,
She's trying to answer. She's trying to
Go
answer.
ahead, sorry, go
so
ahead.
if I was legitimately doing this with someone, the process that I would take is I would ask, do you see that there is a problem to begin with? And the thing is, if someone
Nope, he
doesn't
sees that
see,
there's no problem.
well then,
He's
what
having a
would be
ball. He's having a ball. There's no STDs involved. There's no pregnancy. They're in a committed relationship, just the two of them, and he is just having the time of his life, and so is she. Can't wait to hear the argument for why what he's doing is wrong. Can't wait. What is it?
I think, and this is 100% personal, and you asked me what my argument would be as to why I think it's wrong, so it has to come from a personal perspective, and my perspective is this. I believe that every single person, and I don't care how corny this is precious and treasured. And according to my faith, I believe that doing something in accordance of a marriage is something that should be protected and championed. And it's not in the context of casual relationships. I don't believe that you should ever have sex as a form of the basis of your intimacy. I don't think that you should see a woman as this thing that you can just pursue, and the way to love her is just to have sex with her. I think that every woman is extraordinary and special, and her body is one of the most precious things in the precious.
He agrees, totally agrees. Your body,
well, I
your
haven't
body's
finished my argument.
It's exceptional.
Yeah, but I
they
haven't finished
absolutely
my
adore
argument.
each other. They're having sex every day. They think it's the greatest thing ever. They're having the time of their lives. He actually agrees, let's say, with everything you just said.
Yeah.
That absolutely. A woman's body's her temple. He worships her. She's a goddess. And she thinks he's a king. And they're having a
bows
ball.
to her.
And
He
they're
bows
just-
to her.
they are
He's a little
just
bad.
smashing every single morning, afternoon, and night. And they just adore each other. Tell me what the
is
argument
exhausting.
is for what it is that they shouldn't do that.
If he's not living his life, I mean, for me as a Christian woman, if I'm living my life according to the Bible and I have those standards, those are my standards. If he's not lining up his life to want to have it lined up to the Bible, and
Like,
he
it's as
doesn't
simple
think
as
it's
that.
wrong,
You can't
it's
argue
very
it.
simple.
Yeah.
If he's not
The
living a
Bible
life
says
towards
that.
You can't force him to see our perspective.
Let me take over here for a little bit.
very simple. Like it's
All right.
not
There's
that
that
hard.
complex. It's,
scripture for
it's
that.
actually not that deep.
Yeah,
it's really not that deep. If you don't agree, you
have
don't
the
agree, mate.
conviction, if you don't have the spirit, you're not going to have conviction. Like it just is what it is.
All right,
Why
so
would you want to change that?
I'll just go back to your argument. So just to bring it back to this whole thing of, well, okay, what I had said previously was we had a woman who came on the show, and she was traveling in Europe, and she had no qualms at all with just sleeping with men, multiple men, within minutes or hours of meeting them. She came back to the United States. She's back home. Oh, now, okay, you know, two totally different viewpoints on this. Now that I'm back home, I'm going to make men wait 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I need commitment. I need a relationship. No religious reasons, just totally arbitrary. And then 2 weeks after she has this new standard, she goes on a trip to Vegas. She fucks a guy. Within 30 minutes of meeting him, no real
She needs
actual
Jesus.
standard.
That's the
Okay,
only one that
don't
can
care
bring
about
it.
that.
I actually don't agree
give
with
a
that.
fuck.
I
Don't give a
think,
fuck about that at all. Actually, I want to talk about this trope of women having like this double standard of the conduct towards men. And your argument essentially was, well, what if it's about that she really thinks the guy is really special and she, wants to value
Well,
herself?
for your
and-
specific situation, I would say that it's a challenge of her identity, because clearly that she falls back on her morals and principles, because she says that I'm going to do this and then I do that and then I do this. So it would be a deeper conversation to have with this girl, hypothetically, on what is your identity, what are your morals, values, and principles, because clearly when you go somewhere else, you default on them. So that person actually doesn't have a lot of integrity, would be the analysis of this person.
No,
So
it has, I don't think it has anything to do with
You
that.
don't think so?
No, I just think it's this totally arbitrary thing. She's traveling. It's like, okay, I'm just going to hook up.
I
with
don't
guys.
think so.
And I don't really care about it from that perspective. The perspective is, once again, to bring it back to the male perspective of that's bullshit.
Yes.
I'm not going, like, that's unfair. So I'm going to feel a certain type of way about that. And because of that, I may or may not feel like you're worthy of waiting for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's totally fine.
Like
as a man.
the perspective is,
Like-
is she worth waiting for? And it seems evident to me if she's has this sort of two different standards that are occurring at the same time, that no, she's not worth waiting for. It's one thing if it's always been your standard and you've had 3 long-term relationships and you made all of them wait. But if you've had 10 casual hookups and you slept with them all really quickly, and now you're coming to me and you want a long-term relationship with me, and me personally, I have no inclinations towards waiting weeks or months to have sex, I'm going to look at that and feel like that's a bullshit proposition. I'm going to go date a different girl.
Yeah. And it's
Because
as
you're
simple
playing
as
a
that.
game with me.
It's
But I just don't understand the logic of, because you were saying, well, like you're kind of, it's like they reward the fuckboys who never give them commitment with immediate sex, and punish the guys worthy of a relationship by making them wait weeks, months, or even until marriage.
I think the reason why women do that is, again, there's a need for validation. And so if a guy is distant, if he's cold, if he's backing off, a woman therefore wants him, which is why these F-boys seem to get the reward, because they need to seek that validation and that reward of knowing, oh, they like me, they slept with me, even though they're hot and cold. Where when they have the more solidified yes from a guy that's pursuing them, that's into them, it's this weird psychology which comes back to identity, I think, of I know he's there, but that doesn't fulfill that void of validation.
But isn't
that guy
that
feels that
crazy?
void.
So,
yeah, I don't agree with it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just
crazy,
trying to
but that's
debunk
how it is. That's how it is. So the girls are giving sex to the guys who are the least deserving.
Which is a major problem.
They're giving
Yeah.
sex to the guys who are probably, by their own estimation, the least deserving of it. They're not treating them well, et cetera, et cetera. And then the guys who are treating them well, we're going to wait.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a major problem. And I 100% agree with you that it's not right.
And also, too, it even comes from a perspective of what was their, for me, what did you see growing up? If all they seen was maybe their parents or their aunts, uncles, whoever it was, get into those type of relationships, and they're like, okay, I want to be in these type of relationships too. It honestly goes back to the way you grew up too. If you're around something so often, you're going to attract that as well, versus if I was never taught, I didn't grow up in a happy household where my parents got along and all that stuff. So it's like, if I grew up seeing that, I'm like, okay, that's what I deserve too. If I never seen what an actual healthy relationship's supposed to look like, I'm probably not going to be attracted to that. And it sucks. Yeah, like we said, it sucks that us women, sometimes we want to go after the bad boys. We want that validation, and it comes back to that fulfillment. It comes back to what all we've seen all our life. If I grew up 15 years seeing that type of relationship, realistically, I'm probably going to get into that relationship until I'm introduced to something new. And I get your perspective. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy. And we can't validate that. And if a man says, okay, I'm not going to wait for you, I don't want to be with you. Okay, awesome. For the girl, awesome. You're not the one for me. Cool. Keep it pushing. It's not that hard.
It's
like,
not
for
that,
me,
yeah.
at least in my perspective, it's very simple. It's, if he doesn't want to be with me, okay, cool, awesome. Like, thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
And
No,
we
he
can keep on
does.
going.
He does want to be with you, but you're essentially extending to him very different treatment than the way you've treated. This is something I've experienced with women I've dated myself. They'll be like, "Oh, I want to wait. I want to wait," but they're otherwise seem interested in me. And then if I just do even like a base level of like questioning, have you ever had a one-night stand? Yes. Have you ever had a friends with benefits? Yes. Oh, okay, fourth date, you still don't like, and it's just like this really weird, look, it's her call, she doesn't want to do it, totally respect it,
Yeah.
but I'm going to start feeling like you're playing a game with me, and it just doesn't, like, you're just playing a game. You're trying to leverage sex to get something from me or get commitment. And then I'm like, I just start losing interest because I'm like, okay, she's not interested, so I'm not interested then. Maybe I'll stick around a bit and have sex with her. But once a girl's already started playing that game, I'm just already losing interest. These girls think, oh, if I make him wait, he'll respect me more.
No.
Well, not really, because we actually, in my experience, all the long-term relationships I've had, we had sex first, second date. It wasn't, let's wait.
Trauma bonding or
What? How does it have to do
No,
with
I wasn't going to
trauma?
say that, but do
It's-
you feel from what you're saying, if the girl, I know that she's had sex with other people, and then she's saying with me she hasn't, we get to the third, fourth date, she still doesn't. What that could potentially say is that's hitting a nerve for you. So wouldn't you prefer to look internally and say, why does that actually annoy me? Is it because there's an insecurity within me that brings up? And so when a girl doesn't, I feel that she has to have sex with me to validate something within me. So
Yeah.
wouldn't you prefer to internally look at why that bugs you instead of necessarily analyzing why the girl's not sleeping with you?
And I think it's because men and women see sex differently.
Yeah, I'm just asking out of curiosity.
So okay. Again, we've already kind of discussed this. But so you're saying the girl fucked 10 other dudes on the first night. And then she wants me to wait 4 dates, 5 dates, 6 dates, 7 dates. It annoys me, not because I feel insecure, but she's clearly playing a game, and she has actually it's just a totally arbitrary decision on her end. I heard this from a TikTok. I heard this from a friend. Let me make the dude wait, even though she has no actual qualms. with fucking quickly.
yeah, that
and
makes
this,
sense.
This scenario plays out all the time. A girl will do this, the man will be annoyed by it, and then she'll just meet the next guy and fuck him immediately. So it has absolutely nothing to do with her standards. It's just you're playing a game.
Yeah.
You're trying to leverage sex to get compliance from men in some sort of way. And so it's just, it doesn't frustrate me because I'm rejected. It's just like you're playing a game.
Yeah, and